Hello.
Hi. I'm Jen Childs. I'm the producing artistic director of 1812 Productions.
I'm Scott Greer. I'm injured, and you're welcome.
Hello, and welcome to I Put On Pants for This. As we say every week, usually we would be gathering in the theater, but because we can't do that, we thought we'd have you over to our house to sit around our dining room table and talk with us about comedy. And there was instant comedy.
Yes. Good night. So tell me about your shirt.
So my shirt is actually another vintage 1812 shirt. It says kickball, and the 1 and the 8 are the L's for the kickball. Way back in the day when we used to share space with Interact Theater Company over at the Adrian, we would have a kickball game every
during the Fringe.
During the Fringe, yeah, every September, and it would be Interact versus 1812, and I think they won more, but I think that we have better T-shirts.
No, they won every time, and I believe after the first match which was in 2004. 1812's website said 1812 shows strong second place finish in kickball match. So we won.
With such a good memory. And Scott is rocking a vintage shirt. Just as a note for all of you out there, you can buy T-shirts, newfangled, not either of these, but our newfangled T-shirts are available on our website at 1812productions.org. So we've got a couple of announcements before we get started today.
But what are you drinking?
Oh, of course. I am drinking. It's going very well. I am drinking a Chambord Spritz. It's my first time trying this. It's Chambord white wine and a little bit of seltzer water, and it is. It's not my favorite.
Yeah, you said earlier it was like someone drinking a flat Kir Royale.
Yeah, but it's refreshing. So cheers. And you? I
am drinking a new drink called Social Distancing at the Acme. It's just a gin and tonic, but you drink it standing 6 inches away from an unmasked stranger who is angrily telling you that the Monopoly sweepstakes game is rigged.
Cheers.
Cheers.
So please, I just want to make an announcement about a couple of upcoming events that we have at 1812. First of all, this coming Monday, May 11th, is our comedy conversation with our Eric Thomas. It's amazing. He is the author of a new book of humorous essays called Here For It, How to Save Your Soul in America. He also writes Eric Reads the News for Elle.com. He's an award-winning playwright. He used to work at 1812. He's a master storyteller, Moth winner, and he's just an all-around awesome human being. Super excited. That is 8 o'clock this Monday, and it is a pay what you choose event, and you can find out more about that also on our website, www.1812.org.
1812productions.org.
Yeah, it's going very well. Anyway, so
you started the company.
I know. The other thing is, and we will have more info about this for you, but June 8th is going to be a very special, and that's a Monday. It's going to be a very, very special version of I Put On Pants for This.
Oh, yes.
Going to be I put on fancy pants for this because it is Evento du Schmancy, our annual gala fundraiser. We are taking it online with a whole bunch of really funny stuff. We'll have more info for you on that, but mark your calendars, June 8th. So for those of you just joining us,
you're lucky.
Boy, are you lucky. Today on I Put On Pants for This, we are actually talking about the history of the American Double Act. And we did a show, what was the year?
2005.
2005 with Scott Greer and Tony Braithwaite.
Who?
I know. Who would love to be here tonight, but his technology and our technology are not talking.
That is because he uses a computer that is powered by kerosene.
So, at any rate, we did a show called Double Down, which explored the history of the Double Act. And very famous double acts would come to mind are Abbott and Costello with Who's On First, Laurel and Hardy, Cheech and Chong. I mean, the list goes on. And all of our focus for that particular show was on male double acts. There have been some male-female double acts. Burns and Allen is probably the most famous of them, and that was unique because most times the woman was the straight man and the man was the comic, but they flipped that. interesting note about double acts, the straight man, his name always came first.
Martin Lewis.
Martin Lewis, exactly. Abbott and Costello, Hope and Crosby.
Right.
So the straight man was always listed first because also the straight man got paid more. The straight man was paid 60% to the comics, 40%. And I think we already have a question from Lily. Yes, Lily.
There's been a quick request to talk about the photo challenge that's been happening.
Oh,
You know what? It's because I
Did
didn't
you-
have my glasses on.
that's okay. Did you see if you joined us on time? So our favorite subscribers and patrons, we were showing a slideshow
of a photo challenge that we have going on, a stay-at-home quarantine comedy challenge, where people are taking either pictures of their favorite comedy teams or a picture of their favorite comic movie, etc., and recreating them in their homes with their families. So if you didn't get to check those out before you joined us here, those are also available on our website, 1812productions.org.
Nailed it.
Nailed it. But tied into this, several people from the Comedy Challenge did do comedy teams and comedy duos. There's a great Laurel and Hardy one that Terry Guerin did, which is
That's amazing.
Which is awesome. And so Who's on First is probably the best example of, and the
Most well-known.
most well-known example of some of the comedy duos. But when we did Double Down with Tony and Scott, one of the pieces that we wrote as a little sketch as a part of the show was a scene called A Couple of Straight Guys, which is what would happen if there was no comedian.
It should be said that this was based on an idea by the playwright Evan
Evan
Smith.
Yes, it was.
He never wrote it, but he said, "Wouldn't it be funny?"
If.
Right, if you
Right.
pair, if it was Abbott and Abbott,
Yes.
you know, or Hope and Hope, or Martin and Martin. Yeah.
Exactly. So, so this is our version of A Couple of Straight Guys. You know, the guys on the St. Louis team have a lot of funny names.
You don't say.
Yeah, who's on first? What's on second? And I don't know who's on third.
Isn't that interesting? They're all interrogative adverbs. Say, who was that lady I saw you with last night?
My wife.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah?
You know, I went to the doctor the other day.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, and I told him, doctor, it hurts when I go like that.
What did he say?
He said it's probably my rotator cuff.
Oh.
Yeah. You know, my wife had a baby last night.
Oh, congratulations. What'd she have?
A 3-headed baby.
You know, I almost spit all of my drink out in a fine mist.
Well, it's good you caught that.
I'll say.
Uh,
So, yeah, that's how that would
it
work.
was longer because there was banana peel and a
Yeah,
pie
we did,
and
yeah.
all sorts of things. But the point was, in order to have that magic, in order to make the magic chemistry that happens between two performers, one comic, one straight, one of them has to be the straight man and hold it, but you can't have two comics because it would be chaos. Can you
Right.
imagine two Jerry Lewises?
Yes, two Jerry Lewises.
Yeah. But you also need the comic to supply the punchline. It's also interesting to think about a lot of the early double act comedians who were on stage found homes in silent films and early black and white movies like Laurel and Hardy. And it's interesting because once it went there,
You're saying that film changed the dynamic?
film changed the dynamic a little bit because I think that it not always, you know, Abbott and Costello still had, you know, Abbott and Costello meet the zombie or Dracula or
They
whatever.
did their act with a Frankenstein. Or
Yes.
Yeah.
But in the case of Laurel and Hardy, where both of them are clowns, it's like they were the comics. As a pair, they were the comics, and the world around them was the straight man.
Well, and they were brought together to do film. They didn't have a stage
No,
act.
that's true. That's very true.
They
Yes.
were like a purely on film
Mhm.
double act,
Mhm.
which is unique
Yes.
because even Martin and Lewis had a
Mhm.
stage act and all of that. Yeah.
So when we were doing Double Down, and for those of you who are just joining us, we are talking about double acts, double comedy acts. I am a big history nerd, and I'm a big research nerd.
That may surprise you.
I know. And so in writing Double Down, I was trying to figure out ways to get all of the names of these references to all these double acts into the show. And I'm especially, I don't know, there were so many of them that are relatively unknown. And I was fascinated by them and all the gimmicks that they had. So we wrote this little sketch that was a part of the show just to kind of shoehorn some of that information in, and we're going to share it with you. To set this up, I'm playing Tony Braithwaite, as always. But the whole show was done kind of two men talking about the history of double acts as a double act themselves. So there was a lot of tension and one-upping. So it's just a little scene that shares some history through comedy. All right, let's just move on. Set up for the next sketch.
You set up for the next sketch.
That is not my job.
Well, it's not my job either.
It most certainly is. Besides, I need to do the next narration.
I'll do the next narration.
That is my job.
But I'm just as good at narration as you are.
Go set up for the next sketch.
I know just as much about this stuff as you do.
Go set up for the next sketch.
Anything you can do, I can do better. I can do anything better than you.
No, you can't.
Yes, I can.
No, you can't.
Yes, I can.
Yes, you can.
You know I can't. No, I can't. God damn it!
Ha! With the popularity of double acts in the early part of the century, dozens of teams looked for something special to set them apart. In our ongoing search for the magic that makes it happen, we will look at that something special, a gimmick.
Ah, yes, gimmicks. Frick and Frack were actually a comedy team on ice. Yes, that's right. In the late 1930s, they performed as a part of Shipstead and Johnson's Ice Follies and were considered top entertainments in ice show comedy.
Oh, like you know ice show comedy. How many other ice show comics can you even name?
Freddie Trinkler, the ice skating tramp comic.
Yeah, well, another popular gimmick act was Clark and McCullough, the first team to put the comedian's name first on the bill. They would do an act with two lions, where one lion was real and the other was played by the straight man. The
straight man who was so depressed that how unimportant he was to the act that he committed suicide in a barbershop after spending time in a sanitarium. That straight man. Wow, that's very uplifting, Jen. That's super uplifting. Perhaps the crowd would now like to hear about the comic banter between Charlie Manson and Squeaky Fromme.
Okay, here's one that's sure to please. Savoy and Brennan, who made their mark with female impersonation. Bert Savoy was notorious for being as flamboyant and effeminate offstage as onstage. His campy female character had a catchphrase, "You must come over," which many considered to be a precursor of Mae West's "Come Up and See Me Sometime."
He would have no opportunity to defend that assumption, however, because in 1923, as he was walking along the Coney Island beach, it started to thunder and lightning. Savoy was heard to remark, "Wait, Miss God cutting up something awful," at which time he was struck dead by lightning. True story. Hand to God. Any more?
Zeb and Zero, comedic bicyclists. And yes, I know that Zero was shot in the back by a policeman while doing illegal bike stunts in a public place, but their comedic gifts and their use of the gimmick was unparalleled. So there's that. And that mostly is just a way of showing how I shoehorn all of my research into my shows.
Thankfully. Have a good time.
Another thing that I learned during research for this, one of the, and in the 19-teens and 20s, they didn't have TED Talks, but so what comedians would do is they would write these scholarly articles about comedy for various publications. Trixie Ferganza, who was a big vaudeville female entertainer, wrote a whole article about how, as a female on stage, it's important to make the women in the audience laugh. George Jean Nathan, who was a critic at the time, and actually the critic character in All About Eve is based on George Jean Nathan. In 1915, he wrote an article about vaudeville and what you needed to do. Like, here are the big laugh getters in vaudeville. So all one has to do to be a big name in vaudeville is to, one, have the drummer put an extra beat with the cymbals and then glare at him. Ask the orchestra leader if he is married.
Are you married?
I'm not the orchestra leader, so it doesn't work. No,
I think it's still funny.
It's interesting because you watch this even on late night talk shows.
Absolutely. Doc Severinsen, Paul Schaefer.
Anytime a joke tanks, the host will often go, Paul, how's it going? And deflect it over there. The third one is to use an expression which ends with the query, did he not? And then reply, he did not. So we're going to keep talking about this and how it relates to double acts because we've got a lot to get through tonight. Do we not?
Yes, we do not.
Mm-hmm.
What was the thing about vaudeville that
George Jean Nathan said?
Yes, this is a great quote.
People who can be divided into two camps, those who like vaudeville and those who can stand it when they're drunk. So.
Basically my entire career. That's why I wanted you to say
I know, because you wanted that joke.
Yeah, because I thought about it and then.
Let's move on.
Shall we?
We shall not.
We shall not. Oh, God damn it.
Weber and Fields were an early double act, and they would do German accents and Dutch accents often, and they were big slapstick pioneers. And they wrote this for the Associated Sunday magazine in 1912. So let's just talk about
the capitalizing of the audience's laughter we have set down into the following statistics, ranged in the order of their value. An audience will laugh loudest at these episodes. Number 1, when a man sticks one finger into another man's eye.
Number 2, when a man sticks 2 fingers into another man's eye.
Number 3, when a man chokes another man and shakes his head from side to side.
Number 4, when a man kicks another man.
When a man bumps up suddenly against another man and knocks him off his feet.
When a man steps on another man's foot.
The greatest laughter, the greatest comedy is divided by a hair from the greatest tragedy. Always remember that. As the chance of pain, the proportion of physical misery, the proportion of tragedy becomes diminished, so does the proportion of laughter become less and less. We have often tried to figure out a way to do something to the other's kneecap, second in delicacy only to the eye, but the danger involved is too great. Now, once we figure out the trick, however, we shall have capitalized on another item that may be listed very high in our table. Here is how you can verify the truth of the observation yourself.
You have seen those small imitation tacks made of rubber? Exhibit one, put it on a chair, ask a stranger to sit down, and everybody who is in on the joke will scream with mirth. Try it with a real tack, and everyone will take on a serious face and will want to keep the man from sitting down. So the whole thing was about human nature, and
it is amazing though that comedian. I mean, like they were top comedians of their day, right. And I suppose Penn and Teller, who are technically a magic act, they're comedians. They've done a lot of like meta deconstructing of like telling how they. But I mean, this is like imagine if Kevin Hart or Mark Maron or some other sort of sat down and said, okay. This is exactly how you make someone laugh. This is exactly how this chemistry works. It's kind of remarkable.
Yeah, and obviously this was for
she's raising her
slapstick comics. Yes, Lily.
So apparently some people are having some technical difficulties seeing the video. So just make an announcement about
for those of you who are having technical difficulties seeing the video, we deeply apologize, and we are powerless to help you. I'm really sorry.
No, we will continue to, we're going to continue with the show, and
we have people that are watching that might be able to, so maybe if we hear from the people who can't help that are watching, they will get in touch with Lily, hopefully, and maybe we can relay some pertinent information.
And after, and this will also it'll be up on our site. So go ahead.
Okay.
Great. So for those of you who are just joining us who don't have technical difficulties, we're talking about double acts, and we're talking about some scholarly article.
I was freezing.
I thought you were dying. This is not funny. It's
I
not
thought it was
funny.
funny.
I don't. It's not funny. Anyway.
Lily thought it was funny.
Anyway, Lily watches TikTok. Come on.
That's fair. That's very fair.
All right. So we're talking about those who wrote about these scholarly things about humor, and many of them were specific to the double act. All of these were collected in a book called Writing for Vaudeville in 1915, and it's my Bible. So George M. Cohan had also wrote a scholarly article called The Mechanics of Emotion, where he talked about 100 odd things you constantly laugh at on the stage, that when you see them in cold type, you will probably be ashamed of doing so. And many of these have to do with for double act purposes. So, number 1, giving a man a resounding whack on the back under the guise of friendship. The laugh in this instance may be built up steadily in a climactic way by repeating the blow 3 or 4 times.
A man giving a woman a whack on the back, believing in an absent-minded moment that the woman to whom he is talking is a man. So I say, anyway, I says to Harry, I says, oh.
One character steps on the foot of another character, causing the latter to jump with pain. We're doing that now. It's very painful.
The spectacle of a man laden with many bundles.
A man or a woman starts to lean his or her elbow on a table or the arm of a chair, the elbow slipping off abruptly and suddenly precipitating him or her forward.
One character imitating the walk of another character who is walking in front of him and cannot see.
A man consuming a drink of considerable size in one quick gulp. Don't do it.
A character who, on entering an interior or room scene, stumbles over a rug or a chair. If the character in question be of dignified sort, the power of this laugh is doubled.
Intoxication in almost any form.
You're welcome.
Intoxication, however, must never be revolting. To be welcomed, it must always be funny. In rare instances, it may be pathetic.
You're welcome. 2 men in heated conversation. One starts to leave suddenly, as if fearing the other will kick him. While his back is turned, this man bends his body as if he had actually been kicked and sidles off.
I think let's skip to that one.
Okay. The use of a swear word. God damn it! You were going to speak.
I know. It's okay. A pair of lovers who try several times to kiss, and each time are interrupted by the entrance of someone or by the ringing of the doorbell or telephone bell or something of the sort.
Mom. Dad. What are you doing?
And there you have it.
There you have it.
We hope we've done George M. Cohan proud.
We've done him something.
We've done him something. Well, let's get off of the scholarly and into the double acts themselves. Moving from vaudevillian times, there are just so many that we can talk about, but one of the most famous to come out of the 1960s and to have their own show was the Smothers Brothers, who employed really, really traditional straight man comic relationship. And I am not a man, but I'm ready to do some Smothers Brothers with you if you are down.
I'm down.
Okay, let's do it. Why are you being so stubborn? Don't you know we need to work together? Mom always taught us.
Mom always liked you best.
What do you mean?
My mom always liked my brother best, and she never liked me. Mom and you and Mom.
Why do you keep telling me Mom always liked you best?
Because she really...
Every time you get mad, you always say, Mom always liked you best.
Oh, yeah? Well, because Mom always liked you best, and you always picked on me. You and Mom. My mom and my brother, they would get together and they would say, oh, we don't like you. Mom always liked you best, and she never liked me.
Do you know why she liked me best? Would you like to know why she liked me best? I mean, sure, she liked me best. Why not?
I never knew Mom liked you best. You and Mom always picked on me. Now I remember.
Yes, now you remember.
Mom always liked you best, and she never liked me.
You want to know why?
Why?
Because I happen to be an only child.
Oh, touchy.
Touche. This isn't your night, Tommy.
Yeah, and Mom gave you a dog. My mom gave my brother a dog, and I didn't get to have a dog.
Everybody had dogs.
I didn't have a dog. And you got to have a dog, and more than anything else in the world, I wanted to have a dog of my own. And I asked my mom, I said, Mom, when can I have a dog like my brother, Dickie Smothers? You remember me, I'm Tommy Smothers. And I never got to have a dog, and you never let me play with your dog or anything. And then when I was 10 years old, I said, if I could have a dog, and I never had a dog.
Okay, quit crying, Tommy.
And I didn't get to play with your dog.
Why should I let you play with my dog?
And you would always tell Mom when I play with your dog, you would say, hey, Mom, Tommy's playing with my dog. You remember Tommy, the kid you don't like so much, but I didn't get to play with your dog, and I didn't get to have a dog.
Wait a minute. Before we go any further, you know you had your own pet already.
Crummy chicken.
Well, you wanted it.
No fun playing with a chicken. They don't bark good.
You wanted it.
I did not.
You wanted to sell the eggs.
It was a rooster. And every Saturday, my brother and all of his friends, they'd get their bicycles. I didn't have a bicycle here. You had a bicycle. I never had a bicycle.
Tommy, hold it. You're just getting excited. You had a wagon, and it was a good wagon.
One wheel.
Well, what'd you do with the other wheels?
It was hard for that chicken to pull that one-wheel wagon.
Come on, Tom. Let's just sing a song.
Frank was the best one-wheel wagon pulling chicken in the county.
Yes, he was. He was a great chicken. And so for the Smothers Brothers, if you've never watched any of their shows or listened to any of their albums, they are magic. And Mom Always Liked You Best was sort of, that was their
touchstone.
Their touchstone, absolutely. And you know, another duo that came about in the I guess they started on the radio in the 1940s, but they kept performing well into the 80s. They appeared on Letterman, etc. Was Bob and Ray, Bob Elliott and Ray Goulding, and they worked at a radio station together, and they would invent these characters and kind of riff off of each other, and their riffs became so great, and people liked them so much that they just continued, and so they had a stock cast of characters. They were really an amazing duo, and we had the opportunity with a lot of these shows that we would do. We would reach out to people who were kind of originators of that form, and we would talk with them. And so we had the opportunity to do an interview with Bob Elliott, who's actually Chris Elliott, the comedian Chris Elliott.
Yeah, he wrote for Letterman. He wrote for Saturday Night Live. He's on Schitt's Creek, if y'all are,
And so we reached out. Ray Goulding had died by that time, but we reached out to Bob Elliott, and he was so.
Well, you and Tony had a conversation with him.
Yes.
I met him on the air on Radio Times with Marty
Muscovay.
He very graciously agreed to call in to the interview. And it was more than a little nerve-wracking to do a Bob and Ray sketch while Bob Elliott listened, but he was very gracious and just so smart and cool.
And one of the things that he said to Tony and I when we talked to him on the phone is, we were asking about, like, how did these characters come to be? How did you know when things were working? And he talked about the fact that it's like, if we could make each other laugh, that was the magic. We knew we were doing something right. And you think about all of these double acts, all of these, like, more contemporary times. You think about, like, Tina Fey and Amy Poehler, or
Garfield and Oates,
or Walter Matthau and Jack Lemmon. People that maybe not even weren't technically double acts, but like the Blues Brothers, Dan Aykroyd and John Belushi, but people who have this, like, chemistry that really it levitates, you know.
Elevates the bow.
Yeah, exactly, and it shows them both to their best selves. So Bob and Ray, if Nichols and May, another double act who created things through improvisation, if Nichols and May, if the telephone was their shtick, the expert interview was Bob and Ray's shtick. And we have 2 Bob and Ray sketches. One is new to us, and then the other one is probably my favorite Bob and Ray sketch.
It's a very well-known one.
Yeah. So, so we'll get started on these. So here we go. Good evening, fans. This is Biff Burns in the sports room, and we have a particularly appropriate guest with me now with the Olympics only a few weeks away. He's Big Steve Warbler, and he is the world champion high jumper, and you are going to be hearing a lot from Big Steve. Welcome to the sports room.
Well, it's good to be here. I would like to make one correction, Biff.
Sure.
Well, you said that I was the world champion high jumper. And actually, I am the world champion low jumper.
Well, can't be very much difference between the 2 events. What's your best mark in the low jump?
Well, I jumped 57 feet 8 inches, which is about 50 feet further than the record high jump.
Sounds as though there might be more difference between the 2 events than. Well, you know, of course, you and I know what that difference is, but for the benefit of the fans looking in, would you care to explain it?
Well, sure. Well, in high jumping, you stand in a low place and you see how high you can jump. And now in low jumping, you stand in a high place and you see how far down you can jump.
Well, Big Steve, you and I both know the answer to this next question, but for the benefit of the fans who are looking in, would you care to comment if that's all there is to it?
Well, if you jump from a high place and get killed, then that jump does not count. And that's why my 57-foot 8-inch record still stands.
This may be an embarrassing question for you, but I've got to put it anyway. Isn't this kind of a dumb sport?
Well, I mean, I guess that, you could make a pretty good argument for that, Biff. But you know, no, I like low jumping a lot better than high jumping. You see, with high jumping, you can strain a tendon or pull a muscle on the way up, and then break a bone or something on the way down. But in low jumping, all you have to worry about is what happens to you on the way down.
Well, I can see the logic there, but I'll make it complicated for some of the fans looking in. At any rate, I understand that you're trying to get the Olympic Committee to try and consider this as a major track and field event, the low jump.
Yes, well, you see, it's a little too late for this year's Olympics, but I haven't been able to interest the Olympic Committee at all in this event. So, I don't know. There is a producer here in New York who wants to have us jump off the Palisades over in New Jersey into the Hudson River, but that would not be an official jump because you can't land on anything soft or water or anything like that.
Oh?
No.
Well, I thought the object of the whole thing was just to live through it.
Well,
I didn't know the surface area you landed on made any difference.
Well, I jump mostly onto asphalt and concrete, but you can land on natural ground provided it hasn't been softened or anything like that with rain or moisture or anything.
How about AstroTurf and stuff like that?
Well, AstroTurf's okay, providing that the thorny grass isn't tall enough so as to break your fall, or then again, if it's been softened by rain or moisture.
So if you did get this thing accepted as a real official event, I guess you'd have to do it from the window of an office building or something like that.
Well, yes, but that's not too satisfactory in case of a tie, in which case you'd have to go up a whole story, which is like 10 feet. So no, a much better arrangement would be to use a fire department truck, and in case of a tie, you just go up a rung at a time. You see?
That makes sense. Now I know you've done a lot of research on this, Big Steve, and sent a lot of mailings out and so forth. How many entrants do you think there'd be from around the world if this got to be accepted?
Well, from the mail that I've received, there are 2 other entrants. One is a Tibetan man who puts himself into a trance and then jumps off mountains. And the other guy he's kind of flaky. Well, he's from France.
All right, so there would be 2, and then yourself, which would make 3.
No. Actually, no. There would just be 2. I've decided not to jump anymore. I figured it would take a real fruitcake to think that he could break a 57-foot, 8-inch record that I already hold. And I have learned from experience that low jumping 30 or 40 feet can give you a real headache. So, yeah, who needs it?
Well, I was going to say that at the outset of the interview, but, well, you said it for me, and I want to thank you for dropping by the sports room here tonight. I wish you lots of luck, and this is Biff Burns saying, until next time, this is Biff Burns saying so long.
All right.
Yeah. And, yeah, I mean, I think that it's a very traditional setup of comic and straight man. The one who has all of these wacky ideas, and then
but there is an interesting kind of like they're both trying to pretend that what he's talking about is normal. And right, Ray has these like you're a bonehead or whatever, but like the super dry thing is really so cool.
Well, and we're going to end today with my favorite Bob and Ray sketch, and probably one of my favorite comedy sketches ever. Amazing. I think so. Here we go. This is a special interview for me because I haven't had the opportunity to meet and talk with our next guest. But sit right down there. Tell us your name, please.
Harlow P. Whitcomb.
And where are you from?
From Lens Falls,
New York.
New York.
And what do you do?
I am the president and recording secretary of the STOA.
And what does that stand for?
Slow Talkers of America. We believe
in speaking slowly,
in forming
your words, your thoughts,
our ideas and opinions clearly before we speak. We are here
in New York City,
in the city of New York, attending
a convention,
our annual
convention,
membership
convention.
All of our members, all 250 members are here speaking,
talking slowly so you'll never be misunderstood,
as opposed to the members of the
FTOA.
The Fast
Talkers of America.
Talkers of America.
Yeah.
Our credo
is to speak slowly.
goes something like this.
Okay, can you lower the curtain? I need a drink. Awesome. Well, that was just a very, very little bit about double acts. There are so many and so many more to be talked about, but we are grateful to you for being with us tonight to get just a little glimpse into that process. For those of you who are having technical difficulty, my sincere apologies. Hopefully we will figure that out. And if not, you can watch this afterwards. I want to just say a couple of things. Please don't forget to go to our website, 1812productions.org, and check out info about our comedy challenge and Monday's comedy conversation with our Eric Thomas. Our studio producer is Ben Levan. Our in-house producer is Lily Greer. Our sponsor, as always, is the lovely puppy Vito Childs, who, on behalf of Dogs Everywhere, says, "I'm so glad you're home." Please join us next week when we will be talking about British humor and the humor that came out of Oxford and Cambridge in the 1960s. Be kind to yourselves, be kind to each other, and we will see you on the other side.
Ladies and gentlemen, please say hello to Miss Gracie Allen.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Before we get started, I have a surprise for you. I made up a riddle.
You make up riddles?
Yeah.
That is a surprise.
I know, I told you.
Yeah.
Now, what's the difference between an umbrella and a pickle?
What's the difference between an umbrella and a pickle? I give up.
Oh, I give up too.
But you said you made up riddles.
I do make up riddles, I don't make up answers.
Gracie, let me ask you something. Did the nurse ever happen to drop you on your head when you were a baby?
Oh, no, we couldn't afford a nurse. My mother had to do it.
You're a smart mother.
Smartness runs in my family. Why, when I was in school, I was so smart, my teacher was in my class for 5 years.
I see. What student